Vintage tyres. Okay. Early cars, really early cars, really didn't want to fit pneumatic tyres because they were a bit of a pain, to be honest with you. There were loads of car nails on the road. They were very rough roads, so the vibration made the cars fall apart, which pretty much forced them to use pneumatic tyres, although they tried all sorts of different solutions. And the first vintage tyres were what are called beaded edge tyres. In French they call them Tyre. And what a beaded edge tyre is all about. It's all about this what we call the bead here. The bead is the bit of the tyre that is in contact with the rim. And on a beaded edge tyre, you've got this big lump of rubber there. Can you focus in on that? And it's that lump of rubber that hooks into, you've got a rim that's hookey shaped like that. And it's the pressure in the tube inside the tyre that blows this bead out into the rim and holds it on the rim. So basically, beaded edge tyre technology was what they used up until about 1924-ish. So this is the sort of thing, this is a Dunlop one, the Dunlop tread pad. Fantastic, what a good looking tyre. I would suggest Dunlop beaded edge tyres are the best in the world. The carcass structure of these is superb and strong, and it's such an evocative looking tread pad. Well, it's such a good tread pad, we use it on our company logo. And then you've got other beaded edge tyres like this one here. This is towards Riverside. This one here is a model T4 size, 30 by 3.5. So, you know, this was possibly arguably the most common tyre in the world at about 1927-ish, when the majority of the cars on the road were Model Ts. So that's a contrasting size of you know, Edwardian and early vintage beaded edge tyres. This one here probably fits like a Sunbeam. And then early 20s, Michelin developed slightly lower tyre pressure beaded edge tyres. This one is a 715-115. That fits all sorts of Citroens and things like that, and they're sort of 22 to about 1925. Now, one of the reasons we were using beaded edge tyre technology in Europe was because we hadn't really developed the skills of bonding metal and rubber together very well, whereas in the States they got pretty good at that sort of thing. And this is what they call a straight-sided tyre, or split rim tyre. Now, a split rim is when your rim is cut through on place, like that, and then you retract it in size like that in diameter. Then you can put the rim inside the tyre and push that out into the tyre like that. A straight-sided rim is where the flange on one side of the wheel is taken off, the tyre is fitted on, the flange is then located back in place, and then pretty high pressure. You need to use high pressure in these early tyres, holds them on the rim. Beaded edge tyres for cars, I would say, never go less than 60 psi. Majority of straight-sided tyres also want to run about 60-65 psi. With a straight-sided tyre as well, you will have what they call a flap, which is a U-shaped piece of rubber. You put your tube inside the tyre, and then you put a U-shaped bit of rubber around that tube, so the tyre cannot blow in between the tube cannot blow in between the tyre and the rim and cause a puncture. So that's a straight-sided one. They were used throughout the teens in the States, and sort of started coming into Europe about 1923-ish. Companies like Alvis and Alfa and Rolls-Royce were some of the first European countries to go down the straight-sided tyre route. So they're pretty good. And this is a new tyre that Longstone Tyres are just making for the Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost in a 23-inch rim. So I'm pretty pleased with that. That's actually just a test tyre. We haven't actually got any proper ones yet. And then we developed the well-based wheel. And that is the modern kind of tyre you used to today, where there's a well in the middle of the wheel and you push the bead of the tyre into a well on one side, so the other side of the tyre can go over the rim, like your bikes were when you're changing a bike tyre. You did the same thing with those. And that was developed in pretty much 1924-ish, and the majority of British cars and European cars as well would move to the wire-on tyres there, with things like this. This is a Bentley size. The carcass structure of Dunlop's vintage tyres is fantastic. If you want a good handling tyre that's going to be for a sports car particularly, one that will give you as good a directional stability as you can ask for on a vintage car, then I would suggest, you know, the carcass structure of Dunlop is second to none. This is my vintage car here. I run it on the Dunlop racing tyre. This one here, 450/19. I reckon that's the best 450/19 tyre you can get by Dunlop Racing. That was original equipment on Type 35 Bugattis up until the 30s. I know a lot of them put bigger tyres on, but you know, that's because they think bigger's better, which is not always the case. And then in France, Michelin didn't want to use our form of wire-on tyre, so they developed what they call the Beaded rim, where the well of the wheel only goes sort of 3/4 of the way around the rim. So it's a similar technique to our well-based wheel that we use, but it's called the Bendham. And also, being Michelin, they hated the use of inches in rim sizes, and they developed wheels with a 45cm rim. So that's what those there. Again, loads of Citroens used them, and all sorts of French cars. Some Italian ones as well use a 45cm rim. You cannot put an 18-inch tyre on a 45cm rim. It's not safe. And then we move on to the balloon tyres of the 30s, where you're getting a similar sort of diameter to this 21-inch wheel that was fitted to a 3-litre Bentley, and this is a tyre you might fit to, say, a 2025 or 2530 Rolls Royce on a 19-inch rim. But you've got a balloon tyre, so you've got rounded sidewalls, so more comfort. But in the 30s, cars got bigger and heavier. Comfort was the thing, and you got comfort at the expense of directional stability of a shorter, of a smaller sidewalled cross-ply tyre. There you go, vintage tyres. There's plenty to go out. At Longstone Tyres, where you've got a massive range of vintage tyres. If Liz just scans over at the racks over there, we've got more vintage tyres you can poke a stick out. Buy all the best manufacturing vintage tyres as well. So, any more information you want, contact longstone.com or 01302 71123.